Om Ajnanatimidandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Welcome back to our broadcast at ISV, everyone. Thank you for joining us online from various places from around the world. And thank you very much, Saidev Prabhu, Mahaguna, Jagarini, Kurnath, Sunanda Prabhu, for being here tonight. And all the other guests who have assembled here in the live ISV studios. Today we're celebrating Sri Gaura Purnima and also the Haribo, and also the culmination of our recent campaign to popularize the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Tonight also is the end of that campaign, during which we had various seminars to highlight the glories of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, readings of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and also the distribution. And we also highlighted the marathon through which the book was published in 2 months. Hare Krishna. So tonight we're going to be, is there anything online, announcements, something coming? No. Okay. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Haribo, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Gauranga. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna. Haribo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Gaura Premanande Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai go Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Viditam Dena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Welcome for joining us. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming for Gaura Purnima. This is an unusual time, being hopefully at near the tail end of a world catastrophic event, during which time devotees all over the world mobilized and discovered new ways to spread Krishna consciousness, as they like to do, against all odds. Srila Prabhupada, against all odds, brought Krishna consciousness to the West. I heard him speaking this morning about how he had received an order from his spiritual master, and Prabhupada said he forced me several times. He said he forced me. He forced me to take sannyas. How did he force? Prabhupada explained he came in a dream several times and told him, you have to do this. And Prabhupada, he said, I was not inclined, but he forced me. And then he ordered me, the first time that I met, he said that you should go and preach to the people in the Western countries, because he could understand, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta could, that Srila Prabhupada was highly educated and sophisticated spiritually. He saw that in him immediately. and gave him that instruction, which Prabhupada then, as he said, kept in his heart and obviously manifested by his determination to fulfill the order of his spiritual master. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not known to people in the Western world at all. In fact, when Srila Prabhupada began preaching, there were various professors who had niche areas of study in academics, religious studies, who recognized this is unusual, that Gaudiya Vaishnavism had arrived in the West and been transplanted. That was breaking out all over the place. New York, San Francisco, New Mexico, Montreal, London, from one place to the next. And some of these people who knew the history of religion in India saw something very unusual happening. And it really is rare. In fact, it's rare in the world that anybody takes a spiritual life, especially in Kali Yuga. People are very distracted. Prayanal Payusha Shavya Kalavas Menyuge Jana Manda Sumanda. They have really bad ideas. Manda Sumanda Matayo. They think of really stupid things and then carry them out on a grand scale. So Prabhupada said this is a colossal hoax. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when appearing in India over 550 years ago, was coming for his own reasons and for his routine reasons also. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is, for those who know the secret, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. Krishna Varnam Tvasha Krishnam Sangopang Sangasha Parshadam Jagnai Sankajana Prayera Yajantihi Sumedasa. Of course, Karabhajana Muni gives this hint that those like Rupa and Sanatan Goswami bring out Jiva Goswami to the world, that this is the indication of the Chana avatar, who's also mentioned. Itam nitirya grishi deva jashavatarar. In Prahlad Maharaj's prayers, he mentions how the Lord is Tri-yuga. He appears in 3 yugas. This was a point of contention with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. When Gopinath Acharya was presenting, this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, how can that be? He's Tri-yuga. He doesn't appear in Kali Yuga. And Gopinath pointed out that actually he's Chana avatar. He appears, but he's in a disguised form. And Srila Prabhupada explains, he gives very simple talks on Gaura Purnima. And he explains why he's Chana, or covered in the Kali Yuga. He says that Krishna gave this instruction, Sarvadhraman Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Ahang Tang Sarvapapi Bhyomokshi Shami Masucha. Prabhupada said, he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, so he can demand that we surrender to him. So Prabhupada puts it like that. He demanded this. You surrender. But then Prabhupada said hardly anybody did, because there it is in the Bhagavad Gita. Krishna said it. And of course, it's a good idea. Sarvadharman parityaja. Because what does he say? Just leave it to me, surrender to me, and I'll deliver you from all sinful reactions. But the reaction of the world was, meh, maybe not. Maybe we'll go on with our nonsense in Kali Yuga and just ignore everything. And actually, that's been the trend over the last several hundred years, divorce of religion from higher thought processes, people becoming more fanatical, radicalized, taking up religious processes. Do you think that's a true assessment, Gaura? Yes. Thank you. And so, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very mercifully came to help people understand how to sarva dharma parityaja, if I can put it like that. How do you surrender the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He took us by the hand. As Prabhupada says, a teacher will take the hand of the student and write the letter. Here's how you do it. But we shouldn't think, Prabhupada says in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, that actually the teacher's learning because he's writing deliberately and slowly that this is A, B. But actually, he's showing. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to show how to surrender. Of course, as we learn from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, there were other reasons. There are external reasons and internal reasons for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance. Externally, it was actually the time for him to appear. He appears every day of Brahma in this world, in Kali Yuga, in order to spread the Yuga Dharma. However, as we learn from Rupa Goswami in the Lakhu Bhagavatamrita, actually, normally it's an empowered jiva who comes to do that, to spread the Yuga Dharma, which is chanting the holy name in the Kali Yuga. But in this Kali Yuga, because of his confluence of various reasons, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared. He gave a different kind of distribution of the holy names, which is described in the Beda Kirtan pastimes when Maharaj Prataparudra is watching the devotees of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu arrive in Jagannath Puri. And they're singing kirtan. And at that time, Prataparudra Maharaj, who's seen everything, if you're the king of Puri, you've seen everything. Anybody who's been to Rath Yatra in Jagannath Puri knows everybody comes. Buddhists come, Christians come, every kind of Hindu group in the world comes. Jai Shri Shri Radhamadan Mohanji ki jai, Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Shri Shri Lakshmana Sringa ki jai. Everybody comes to worship Chakadola. Chakadola, the round-eyed Lord. And they all worship him in their own ways. Madhavananda was also speaking about this. Remember Satyadev Prabhu, he was talking about how all the different kinds of people who come to Puri, everybody comes to see Jagannath and worship him in their own way. Of course, Krishna says, Yata mam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mama bhart manuvartante manusha parta sarvasha. He'll reciprocate anybody who comes to him. So, Prataparudra had seen all kinds of people beating all kinds of drums, beating all kinds of instruments and playing this and singing that and worshiping in this way and that way. And when he saw Advaita Acharya and all the devotees from Navadvip who had just shown up. Judges? Okay, shown or showed. And there he was, his mouth agape, looking at this and observing. He said, "What is this? What are they doing? How? I've never heard anything like this before." This is the kirtan they were singing. If we could only hear that. Of course, we heard it with Prabhupada because he brought the same vibration. And what was it? It was Prem Sankirtan. That's what he says it is. This is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's own brand called Prem Sankirtan. It's the same thing, chanting the holy names of the Lord, but it's imbued with his special prema. So Prabhupada brought that out to the world in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's amazing that he was in such a hurry to get it out to the world. He was so eager that everyone should have it and that we shouldn't miss a verse. That, of course, as we heard recently and have heard many times about the marathon through which Prabhupada got the book published, the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, within 2 months. And in it, we find out the inner desires of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and why he came. This is called revealed scriptures. We find out the inner workings of the mind of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How is that possible? Because he can't conceal himself to the devotees. It's mentioned by Brahma in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says, Gyane prayasa mudapasya namanta eva jivanti san mukharitam bhavadiyavartam stane stita shrutikatam tanavan manobir ye prayaso jita jito pyasitais trilokyam. Those who have fully dedicated themselves to submissively serving the Lord, body, mind, and words, hearing his topics, become so in love with the Lord that the Lord submits himself to them. Jitta, ajita becomes jitta, becomes the unconquerable becomes conquered. And he reveals himself. In fact, he can't hide himself. We know Ramananda Roy would see, as he was speaking to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the combined form of Radha Krishna. And therefore, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya is mentioned in that section of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Why? Because Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was speaking to his pure devotee, and he couldn't hide his form as Radha and Krishna combined. And then we hear about this. So we hear from the diary of Sarup Damodar within the Mangalacharana of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. He describes who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Of course, Kaviraj Goswami begins the Chaitanya Charitamrita by offering his obeisances. Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Gaurudai Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonudao. Actually, that's not how he starts. What's the first verse? Vande Guru Nisha Bhaktan Ishan Ishan Vatarakam Taprakasham Statach Shakti Krishna Chaitanya Samdikam. So he offers obeisances to the gurus, plural, and all the Lord's different expansions, the Lord himself. And then he mentions how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda have appeared simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow benediction upon all. And then he says, Yadadvaitam Brahmoparishadi Apyatanasya. Okay. Slow down, Vaisesika. What is the verse? Yadadvaitam Brahmopanishadi Tatapyasya Tanubha Yaatmantarayami Purusha Iti Soshamsa Bibabaha Shadaishvarya Punor Yo Iha Bhagavan Saswayamayam Chaitanyat Krishna Jagati Paratapvam Paramiha. So here he's fleshing out the verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Vadanti tat tat pavidas tatvam yaj jnanamadvayam brahmeti pramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdite. Quintessential description of a dvaya gyan tattva, the absolute truth, is manifest in three ways, as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So here Kaviraj Goswami then says Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is all three of those because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what was his will? He describes then, Anarpita charim chirat karuna yavatirna kalo samarpayitumuna tojvala rasam svabhakti shriyam hari purata sundara dyuti kadamba sandipita sadahradaya kandare spuratuva shachinandana. That Krishna was thinking that I haven't bestowed my special mercy on the people of the world for a long time. Anarpita charim chirat. For a long time I've not given this knowledge about myself. And what is it? This verse is, for lack of a better term, unpacked a little later by Kaviraj Goswami, and he says, what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu come to teach? What was his, besides the Yuga Dharma and giving Prem Sankirtan, what was his purpose externally? And that was to teach about Raga Bhakti, spontaneous devotional service. He says, does Kaviraj Goswami, he indicates the way Krishna's thinking, that by following Vaidhi Bhakti rules and regulations, that one goes to Vaikuntha, but only by this specialized kind of internal cultivation of following in the footsteps of the residents of Vraja, who are worshiping Krishna in unceremonious love, can one come to Goloka Vrindavan. So he says the purpose of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's coming externally was to teach this Rag Bhakti specifically, so that the people of the world would know that actually Krishna favors this kind of love. Nayam sukapo bhagavan dehinam gopikasta gyaninam chatmabhutanam yata bhaktimatam iha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu quotes this verse from the Bhagavatam several times. Once when he's with Vyankatabhata, and they're talking about the difference between Vaikuntha and Goloka. And Vyankatabhata, of course, is attached to the on-reverence of worshipping Narayan and Vaikuntha. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is jokingly instructing him, speaking to him in a lighthearted manner. He said, well, yeah, then why is it that Lakshmi wanted to enter into the rasa dance and perform austerities, severe austerities to try to do that, and she wasn't able to do it? And he gives the answer, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nayam Sukapo Bhagavan Dehinam Gopika Sutta. Those who don't have the kind of feeling, the spontaneous feeling of love for Krishna that the residents of Vrindavan have, can't actually, Krishna doesn't consider that so well. However, nothing can compare, says the verse, to this feeling of the residents of Vrindavan. And this is confirmed also in the Chaitanya Manjusha, a verse that Prabhupada quoted frequently, where he, Arajo Bhagavan Vrajesha Tanayas Tadhama Vrindavana Ramya Kachirupasana Vrajavidu Vargina Vokalpita. He says in the second line that the method conceived by the gopis of Vrindavan is the highest method of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach this secret that there are these relationships in Goloka Vrindavan that Krishna enjoys more than anything else. For instance, when he's with his friends. Of course, if you go to Goloka, which I'm sure all of you are, please send a note back. No one there thinks he's God. We just love him. We don't think he's God. They think Narayan's God. And they pray to Narayan, Nanda and Yashoda to protect Krishna. And if you say, he's God, no, he's God. And it's like, okay, whatever, but he's still our friend. And in that friendship, Kaviraj Goswami says, the friends wrestle with Krishna. They say, you're not so big. You're not such a big man. I could take you any day. I could take you 3 times out of 3. Let's go again. And they're wrestling. And then he says, does Kaviraj Goswami, that the ways in which his lovers berate him, that Krishna sometimes comes to see Srimati Radharani, and one of her friends comes out and said, whoop, not so fast, she doesn't want to see you. You can go home. You're not needed here. And they'll say things about, disparaging things about Krishna in this mood of man, of being angry at Krishna for various reasons, lovers' quarrels. And Kaviraj Goswami says, in the Adi Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, a book Prabhupada had, there was 17 volumes he asked us to distribute. He asked the devotees then to print 20,000 copies. 20,000 times 17, please. Mathematicians, no calculators, please. Use Vedic math. Huh? Balaram's got it. What is it? 340,000 hardback books, Prabhupada. They had in Tennessee, by the way, Ekachakraprand, in Tennessee, they filled up the trains full of Chaitanya Charitamritas. Prabhupada wanted that information. What information? That when his lovers, when he comes to see, they say, get out of here. We don't want to talk to you. And this is one of the reasons, the external reasons, why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, why Krishna came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to teach everyone about this process. His disciples carried it forward. In the Upadeshamrita, we hear about the gradual process through which one can cultivate that, where Rupa Goswami says, what verse am I thinking? Tannama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu Smrityo Kramena Rasa Manasi. I'm sorry. Tannama Rupa Charitari Sukirtananu Smrityo Kramena Rasana Manasiniyoja Tishtam Vraje Tananuragi Jananugami Kalam Nyayed Akilam Ityupadesha Sharam. Rupa Goswami says this is the essence of all advice in all the bhakti scriptures, is that we're meant to follow this system that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave, to follow the resonance of Vrindavan the mood. How? By the system that Srila Prabhupada taught us, which is very simple actually. We follow the rules and regulations of set down by Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, which was taught to them by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu very strictly. And gradually, there's a way in which, through hearing over long periods of time, one develops an attraction for a particular resident of Vrindavan. Tishtam vraje tanaruragi jananugami, and one then becomes a follower of a particular parishad or eternal associate of the Lord in Vrindavan, who worships the Lord in a particular mood of ragatmika bhakti. Spontaneous, unceremonious love. That's the essence. And that's what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually came to teach. And that's what we actually do in our ISKCON movement by following what Srila Prabhupada gave us. That is following Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. All the processes that we have, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam every day. He instituted daily Srimad Bhagavatam class as a minimum. And of course, there were many other classes as well, to hear and hear and hear and hear. And that is the gateway to coming to the perfectional stage of life, which is to develop attraction for the residents of Vrindavan and their mood of worshiping Krishna. So that was one external reason Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came. And the second is, and we'll see if we can emulate this, Srila Advaita Acharya's loud cries. In fact, Mahaprabhu mentions his cries were Advaita Acharya's so loud that although he was sitting here in the material realm, Advaita Acharya, and calling out to the Lord, Mahaprabhu later on says, "You shook my asana." It was so loud. And he was calling out again and again, saying, "Please come, please come." So he yelled very loudly, Krishna, on three. 1, 2, 3. Krishna! That was about a 0.01 on an Advaita Acharya scale. But this is a good point also. If you really want devotional service, follow Advaita Acharya and call out Krishna and, shake the asan somewhere, wherever the Lord's sitting, that this poor fellow really, really wants me. This is the process to sing out. Otherwise, it's not so attractive. Anyway, the process of Advaita Acharya was to call out to the Lord. He had compassion. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came because of the loud cries of Advaita Acharya. In fact, we find in the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he executed his mission as the carrier of the Yuga Dharma for some time. He went down to South India. He went barefoot from village to village, taught everyone, sit down, chant together, and do this process of Sankirtan, which he cooked up at the house of Srivas Thakur and then brought out into the streets and then brought everywhere in the world the Yuga Dharma, through which anybody could attain perfection of life, Kalim sabhajiyantyarya gunagya sarabhagina yatra sankirtanenaiva sarva swarto bilabhyate. All perfections will come by the process of sankirtan. He was teaching everybody this from village to village. And then Advaita Acharya sent him a note saying that everybody's been taken care of. There's enough rice in the marketplace now. And after that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went into his internal Leela in Jagannath Puri with his most intimate associates. And as Kaviraj Goswami describes, his pastimes then became mad performances. And there he's tasting why he came and for the internal reasons he came, which are described in the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. First, however, just a little bit of ontology in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Then we hear from Kaviraj Goswami, who writes, Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shakti Rasmad Ekat Mana Vapi Bhuvi Purit Dehet Deha Katao Tao. Blew it. Radha, so how's it start? No, how's it start? Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shakti Rasmat Ekat Manav Api Bhuvi Pura Deha Bedam Gatao Tao Chaitanyakyam Prakatam Madhuna Tatvayam Chaikyam Aptam Radha Bhava Duti Suvalitam Naumi Krishna Sarupam. Did anybody see the moon this morning when you were? It was stunning, wasn't it? And it's coming up again tonight. And in this poem written, poetical verse, describing how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appears as the moon appears to rise from the ocean. And so he appeared from the ocean of the womb of Srimati Sachi Devi. And this is a description of the ontological fact that Radha and Krishna, the Lord Eko Bahu Shyam, he's one, but he expands himself for his own pleasure. And now the Supreme Personality of Godhead, since a time immemorial, has expanded himself into his feminine counterpart, Srimati Radharani, to enjoy pastimes of love. The whole thing's about a love affair, this whole thing, the whole creation, ultimately. And the spiritual world, it's all a big soap opera, really. And, you know, it's all about a love affair, and everybody's absorbed in it 24 hours a day. And so that love affair is going on in the spiritual world. It's the completely absorbing pastime that's there. And so he describes, Kaviraj Goswami, that now, however, for his own purposes, those two, okay, sorry, no Sanskrit. Aduna, now, however, those two have become one in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Isn't that beautiful? So Radha and Krishna now combine and now have Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that one has appeared in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from the womb of Srimati Sachi Devi, the way that the moon appears from the ocean. And so Radha Krishna Pranaya Vikriti Hladini Shakti Rasmat, to enjoy a loving pastimes, pranaya. So there are two. Otherwise, what's the use of being the supreme unless you can enjoy the admiration of your lovers and your appreciators? That's why the living entities exist, to appreciate the Lord. That's all we are, is appreciators. That's not a small thing, it's a big thing. And so now they've become one, and in the next verse he describes, does Kaviraj Goswami, why? Why did he become one? It's out of lobha, a kind of greed. And what is that greed? He wanted to know, Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahimaha Kidrisho Vana Yaiva Svadyo Yena Bhuta Madhurima Kidrisho Va Mariyaha Saukyam chasya mad anubhavita kidrisham beti lobad tadbhavadya samajani sachi garba sindhu harindu. He wanted to know he wanted to understand what is the greatness of Srimati Radharani's love, because as the object of love, he can't taste that. Only the one who's seeing Krishna and loving him can taste that. And therefore, out of his greed, because he's the supreme enjoyer, he's saying, what's going on here? And Kaviraj Goswami says, what's going on is Srimati Radharani and her associates enjoy more than Krishna. Because Krishna is so sweet, their love, through their love, they're tasting greater happiness than the supreme enjoyer. That's not right. So he comes to taste it for himself, and that's why Radha and Krishna combine and come in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And of course, Krishna is always, in his pastimes, just one example, in the Rasa Leela, he leaves. Why does he leave? To see what is Srimati Radharani's reaction going to be when he's not there. What is the greatness, mahima, of her love for me? He wants to know. And he wants to know also, what is the happiness she feels when she sees me? Because there's a competition, Prabhupada explains, always going on between Radha and Krishna. Each one of them is enjoying a kind of happiness and sweetness, but then they increase in their beauty and their sweetness, and then eternally that's increasing. And he wanted to see, what is it that Srimati Radharani's tasting? The love that she feels for me, the greatness of that love, the happiness that she feels in that love. Shri Radhaya pranaya mahima kidrisho vanayaiva swadyo yena bhuta madharima kidrisho vaniyaha. So these are the internal reasons that the Lord appears. Obviously, when he comes in any form, he can fulfill many purposes at the same time. So we happen to be recipients of that. That is the conjunction of timing, that there's a way in which the Yuga avatar comes, but this time Krishna came in this Kali Yuga. And he came to give Prem Sankirtan, that's a big deal. And he also came to teach Raganuga Bhakti, that's also a big deal. He also had his own internal purposes of tasting the love that Srimati Radharani has for him. So he's in combined form. So there are a lot of benefits to that. One of them is described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur when he says that if a person, say the emperor, very wealthy man, gets intoxicated, he takes one day in intoxication, he goes to the treasury. He takes out all the most precious gems and heirlooms, brings them in a sack down to the common road, and singing, and you know how people sometimes do in intoxication, they lose themselves. He just starts giving them away to everybody, all the passers-by. So in a similar way, we've caught the Supreme Personality of Godhead in this particular mood of intoxication and love for himself, through which he's distributing freely to anybody. Doesn't matter who you are, you can be a bum, and he'll give it to you because he doesn't recognize that. He's not requiring anything. He's not even saying sarvadharman parityaja. He's just saying, here, take it. I'm giving it out free to everybody. That's the Hare Krishna movement. That's what Prabhupada did. He just went around and everyone said, these are bums. You can't give them Vedic culture. And he said, just watch. And he did it. And he gave it through the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We're recipients. And his mercy is being manifest all over the world. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wants something to happen, it happens. With us or without us, anybody can take up the order. And that's another big deal, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then gave us service. He said, wherever you go, whomever you meet, teach them about Krishna consciousness. You don't have to teach all this other stuff. We're at Gaura Purnima, so we're talking about internal, external reasons. All you have to teach them is Bhagavad Gita and Hare Krishna. And if you teach Hare Krishna and Bhagavad Gita and give them lots of prasadam, they'll be on the Rag Marg, believe it or not, because they're following Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his devotees, and they'll pick up on the vibration of the Prem Sankirtan. And Tesham Satata Yuktanam Vachatam Pritipurvakam Tadami Buddhi Yogam Tam Yenamam Upayanti Te. Krishna will help from within to enlighten those who take to the path. So my point is, he said everyone should become responsible. We take responsibility for this. It's a great thing to have associates and friends who make you become responsible, isn't it? Yeah. And they convince you, you have to take responsibility and do this, whatever it is that's important. And then you do it because they tell you have to do it, and then you get all the benefits from that. So Satyadev Prabhu always helps me by trying to encourage me to be more responsible. Right, Satya? You know, one thing I'm going to really appreciate after the pandemic is over and we can take our masks off is that I can tell what expressions people have on their face and what I have on mine. Because a lot of times people look at me and I can't tell. Like, what are you thinking, you know? Do you know what I'm thinking? You can't tell, can you? We're very fortunate. And also, we have service. This is the point. We have service. It was left by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's a rope. You can grab onto it. And if you grab that rope of service, you can go all the way back to Goloka Vrindavan by Prabhupada's mercy, because he gave the whole process in such a nice package, just organized it for us so we could taste it ourselves to the degree. Ananda Murari, when he finished his college degree recently, I said, so how was school? He said, well, I had this realization, education is what you make of it. You go to school, you can read a book, whatever, but it's what you put into it yourself that counts. That's what you get out of it, he said. That really inspired me. I said, wow, I better get serious about life. You know, this is a powerful point. Hey, thank you. This is like the old days. Remember the old days? We have the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. We're on a marathon to distribute these to everybody. This is a good idea. It's right as rain. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita should go out all over the world. This year, of course, last year we had a campaign to distribute Srimad Bhagavatam. It started several years ago for Bhadra Purnima. We did 7,000, then 7,000, and then we said, come on, what are we doing on a plateau? And last year we did 23,000 Bhagavatam sets. That's an increase, right? Vedic math. 7 to 24, 3 times, so at least. And so then I was telling my colleagues at the BBT that we really want to get Chaitanya Charitamrita going. And they were like, wait a minute, slow down. So we got to print them and make sure they're in stock, because don't do anything this year. It's too soon. So I said, okay, this year we're going to talk about it and we're going to start putting emphasis on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, but be ready for next year, because next year the floodgates are going to open and we're going to distribute tens of thousands of sets of Sri Chaitanya Charitamritas, guaranteed, all over the world, in as many languages as possible, just like Prabhupada said to do when he sat on the Vyasasana in 1975 in Los Angeles, said, print as many books in as many languages and distribute throughout the whole world, and the Krishna consciousness movement will automatically increase. So this is the time, the Gaur Purnima. If you haven't already taken some sets, we're practically giving them away. This morning earlier, I was talking to our Sankirtan leaders, Malini and SKP, and I was saying, so today, as we did last year, we offered the Chaitanya Charitamrita for those who want to sponsor some, to make sure they go out to people all over the world. And I said, so how much are they? Like $150? And they said, no. They said, 99. And I said, are you crazy? And they said, yeah, we're a little crazy. But that's what it is. It's 99 for the sponsoring sets of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And they're going out to people, amazingly, to seemingly ordinary people who are just minding their own business, walking around, and then all of a sudden they run into this. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, everything we just talked about, Raganuga Bhakti, and then all the tenets of the philosophy of devotional service, and extremely, let me see what happens if you're just walking down the street, somebody hands you this and you open it. I'm going to open it random, it's not marked. Prove it's not marked. Just open it somewhere. I don't even know which part this is. Okay, let's see what they get when they open this up and read it. He enjoys the rasa dance with Srimati Radharani, Sri Lalita, and others. He manifests himself as the Cupid of Cupids. See, that's important. Because everybody's looking for Cupid in this world. They want beauty, they want love, but they're not getting it. Everyone's getting some rip-off version that falls apart within a few years. I wanted the real thing and I got ripped off. That's what every song's about, every blues song anyway. And you know, it's all the poetry. You go back through English history, literary history, and you'll find, you know, wah. And everybody's crying here in the material world, but this is about the real thing. Just as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, this world is a reflection of the spiritual world. And you're getting wholesale ripped off here. Top to bottom, ripped off. Stop getting ripped off and turn your attention towards the Cupid. What is it again? The Cupid of all Cupids? Come on, wouldn't you like to see that? Would you like to see the Cupid of all Cupids? That's a good line if you want to sell the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Excuse me, sir. Are you aware that there's a Cupid of all Cupids? Would you like to see the Cupid of all Cupids? Well, I have it right here in this book. That's what we're offering. It's actually outrageous what we're doing. It's actually outrageous. I mean, we know from Shyamasundar Prabhu that this is the kind of things he'll say about how, you know, the way Prabhupada came in and he just burst in. And he said, you know, we're doing this now. This is what's happening now. And here's what it is. And he just put it out there to the world. You can listen to him and understand it's unabashed. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, hey, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman, Nachari Armarman.